Is all prepared then? Excellent. Then it is time for our friend to be invited to the shack. Go fetch him for me, would you? And be gentle, I would not have him damaged, if it can be avoided. I'll join you at the shack shortly. I have a few last things to prepare in the sanctuary.
What is the music of life?
Silence, my brother. "21 Midyear, 4th Era, 202. I was being followed. I'm not sure how I knew, but I could feel it. Ever since I left Riften, there has been someone behind me. I would say stalking, but I'm not feeling any menace in this watcher, only curiosity. I had almost decided to turn around and confront him, whoever they were, when I suddenly had another problem. Well, not that a dove is much of a problem, to be honest, but I had been waiting for one to show up for several days now, and of course now, when I had something else I was about to deal with, is when one decided to show up. It was a short fight. Shortened even more by the number of times my Stormcall shout struck it with lightning out of the sky. That quickly I had the heart scales I needed. As for the Watcher, well, they were gone. Whoever they were. The deed was done. And now Aventus Aretino believes that the Dark Brotherhood has killed Grelod The Kind. I did little to try to convince him otherwise. If they are gone after all, then it doesn't matter what he believes. And if they are still existent, then this will only more surely bring me to their attention. I left him to do as he wished. Though with Grelod gone, I think he will head back to Riften. With Constance likely to be in charge now, he'll have far better luck, I think. And he really should be back among the other children. Of course, the others know that he was trying to summon the Brotherhood to kill Grelod. With the old crone dead, that will either make him incredibly popular or incredibly isolated. Either way, not my problem. I slept through the day, preparing for a journey to Winterhold. I handed the heart scales over to Tolfdir, and, a half hour later, he handed me a spell tome he had just devised for a new spell in the Alteration School. He also informed me that I am, more or less, the Archmage now, as the only person currently on the college's rolls who has mastered all 5 of the schools. No obligations on my part, however. Tolfdir has taken over from the late Mirabel as the school's headmaster, so he will deal with the everyday moment-to-moment things. My role will be entirely ceremonial, as they did not want to impinge on any duties I might have as Dovahkiin, or Harbinger, or Thane of whatever hold might need my attention. A small courtesy, but one I appreciate. I will continue my journey, heading now to Castle Volkihar to deliver the news of the vampire's death at Felglow Keep. At that point, the clan should be more or less safe for the immediate future. I also, strangely, find myself looking forward to seeing Serana again. Odd indeed. 22 Midyear, 4th Era, 202. My return to Castle Volkihar was, as usual, generally unremarked. The vampire I'd been sent to destroy was gone, as was expected of me, so there was very little reason to give any congratulations. This was survival, not a contest. When our kind are threatened, we must act. Similarly, when there is opportunity to safely grow our numbers, we must also act. Serana has already given the approval, and Vingulmo has done the initial legwork, but I have been chosen to deliver the honor of embrace and welcome into the clan. Since I received the gift originally from Harkin himself, and augmented by Serana's more recent contribution, I have the second strongest bloodline in the clan now. The candidate is in Riften, which will allow me to evaluate the new management at Honorhall, as well as check in on the guild. It's been a few days since I last visited, and I should at least see what's been left for me in the tribute chest. I had no sooner stepped onto the shores of Skyrim again, when the courier found me. Again, I could almost feel something Daedric about him, but it was so faint and so unlike any of the lords that I have to dismiss it out of hand. Perhaps when I have the time, I will spend some time looking into it. The note he handed me, though, needed no investigation to understand. The courier had reported that this note came from a creepy man in a black hood. There were only 2 words on it. "We know." These words appeared under the black hand symbol of the Dark Brotherhood. At last. But also, no directions, no explanations, nothing, just those 2 words. Are they hunting me, then? Or is there something else to be learned from this? Either way, I will likely see them coming. I suspect that the one following me recently was likely one of them, trailing me. If that is their normal level of tracking and stealth, then perhaps I'll have a thing or two to show them. Though the sun was brutal, I traveled to Riften immediately. Once there, I made a brief visit to the guild to collect my tribute, and, as it turned out, deal with a minor difference of opinion concerning Jarl Blackbriar's recent, illness. They already know that it is no illness of any kind, that she is dead. What they don't know is how it happened, who did it, or how the guild should respond to it. Maven was a known associate of the guild, and her death will be seen as a major strike at us. Vex in particular was vocal in her desire to strike at whomever had done it. Fortunately, I'd already been thinking ahead on this. I reminded them all that I had already cut her involvement in the guild the day I took over. From my perspective, she was a client, not a member. That said, however, I also had tracked down the murderer and dealt with him. I basically invented someone who was a supporter of Layla Lawgiver and told the story of how she had done it and when, along with my own story of tracking her down and dropping her body into the waterfalls near Iverstead. I also encouraged that story to be leaked to the city of Riften. Maven's death will serve us just that little bit more that way. I returned to Honeyside to get some sleep before finding our new clan member and gifting him our bloodline. 23 Midyear, 4th Era, 202. I did not get the rest I expected, but I got something far better instead. Near as soon as my head lay down, someone snuck into my home and tried to put me into a deep sleep, using a sleeping potion poured into a cloth and held over my face. They had not done all their homework, it seemed. I simply stopped breathing until it was pulled away and kept my eyes shut as I listened. 2 others joined the first, and I was taken from my home and laid over the back of a horse. We rode for several hours, and though I couldn't get a good look around because of my position, I know that we started out north and passed Windhelm at some point. Finally, we arrived in a swampland, which I can only assume means somewhere near Morthal. I was pulled from the horse and taken inside a small shack and tossed roughly on a bed there. I heard 2 of my 3 captors leave, while the third seemed content to wait for me to awaken. Once I had deemed enough time had passed, I woke up and faced my captor. I cannot tell you how hard it was not to smile in triumph. The Dark Brotherhood had found me, and if they had intended to kill me, they wouldn't have bothered moving me all the way out here. The woman made it clear who she represented, and why I was here. Oddly enough, it was not because of any of the main kills I had made the last week or so. All of this, was about the kill for Aventus Aretino, the one death that, as she put it, by rights, should have been a Brotherhood kill. This visit was about repayment, nothing more, which brought me to my current situation, for I was not the only guest. She had brought in 3 people, one of which she claims had a Brotherhood contract on them. I had simply to make my choice, make my kill, and we would be even. I knew better. None of the 3 would be leaving here alive no matter what I did. But since this woman likely had to make a decision about me as well, I decided to make as much of a show of this as I could. This is not how I had seen all this happening, and I didn't care much for it. However, my time with Clavicus Vile had taught me something. I do not have to like what is given to me. I have only to accept it and make it work for me. I spoke with all 3 of them. I heard them beg. Well, 2 of them begged. The third, a Khajiit, basically bragged about his exploits and crimes. Simple, really. One was a coward, one was just a frazzled woman who'd had enough, and that Khajiit openly spoke of things he'd done. It might have been all 3. And that's when I smiled. Why take a chance? None would live anyhow. So why not? I pulled my dagger and put them all to sleep. As I had suspected she would, she simply handed me the key and told me I was free to go. When I took the key, though, I could feel power in this woman, similar to the power I had felt in others, like Isran. Power in her blood. Oh, I would need to get a taste of her at some point, when I could manage it without issue. I was about to walk out of the door, though, when she sprang the trap. She suggested that perhaps we should take our relationship a step further. I was formally invited to join the Brotherhood, given directions to the sanctuary, and told how to gain entrance. I suspect that if I were to walk away, I would have all of the Brotherhood chasing me, not just the occasional single member. I'll have to ask about that, as to if those assassins were really Brotherhood or not. At least they do still exist. I've doubted it at times. After thinking for a moment, I told her I accepted, but would need to deal with business in Riften before I could go to the sanctuary. She said nothing, but I felt her acceptance. Return to Riften, then embrace my new destiny. I took the remainder of the night hours to get even close to Riften. The final 3 hours of travel were in the sunlight. Sometimes I think Harkin was at least partially right. The sun is clearly a hamper to our power. However, I begin to think that with the right research and the right blood, perhaps it might be possible to become strong enough to withstand the sun's rays. I'll have to talk to Serana about this when I have a chance. The new member of the clan was working on his own at the Riften fishery when I arrived. Being alone, I did not even try to hide who I was or why I was there. His excitement reminded me somewhat of a puppy. He will learn, as I did, that the power of our curse is not instant. He will have to work, and hard, to adapt to our lifestyle and to grow his own power. I slept through the remaining daylight hours, leaving Riften just before sundown. It was time to go home, to the sanctuary in Falkreath, there to join the Brotherhood at last. My travels were mostly uneventful, though I think I have found an alternative to riding Arvak. Rather than conjure him up and ride, as I have for months now, I have been transforming into my lord form and gliding along the paths at what is almost a horse's pace. I can imagine already some of the stories that will begin to spread. A winged angel of death that haunts the roads and destroys the unworthy, or some such. That's the version I imagine the Vigilance will use. They are missing several patrols tonight after my passing. I arrived in Falkreath, at the location I was told to seek. Here, behind a false rock wall, was the Black Door. I will not give all the Brotherhood's secrets away, so I shall not speak of the password nor the question the door asks. Just know that based on what my life has been like these last years, I can only agree with it. I stepped through and into a new life. Astrid, of course, was the first to welcome me. She gave me a quick rundown on what was expected of me, the situation the Brotherhood is in. I can't say it's not a familiar story, I've almost lived it before. The Thieves' Guild hit a patch of bad luck, but compared to the Brotherhood, they had it easy. I wasn't wrong when I once said that the Brotherhood was all but destroyed. This is the last known sanctuary, the last family in all of Tamriel. Suddenly, it is no wonder that it took as long as it did for them to notice me. Once upon a time, all contracts came through a member called the Listener, one who could supposedly hear the voice of the Night Mother. I've read of this, so knew what Astrid spoke of, but she also told me that the Thalmor created a situation that exposed the Brotherhood. Bravil, the tomb of the Night Mother, was destroyed. The last Listener was killed not long before. The contracts are almost all by word of mouth and rumor, though the sacrament still is performed. The Night Mother's body, however, is supposed to already be on its way here to Skyrim. Some months ago, her keeper reported that he was in the province, but until recently he'd been silent and absent. A new letter arrived only a day or so ago, with the keeper claiming he would be here in days. For the moment, I have no contracts, but I have been directed to a man called Nazir. Astrid thinks he'll have some things to keep me busy until then. It is time to meet the family, it seems. I seem to have arrived not long after everyone else did. From the conversation, the stories told, each of them had just completed a contract of their own. Just listening to them told me much about them, such as the fact that I will not be the only vampire present here, and that we also have a werewolf among us. When they began to break apart, I was noticed and approached by Nazir, the man Astrid had told me to seek. A red guard, confident, and with a bit of swagger to him. He also has a penchant for bad puns and a sarcastic streak a mile wide. I liked him, actually. Once we got to know each other a bit more, though not too much, as he also quipped that he thought I wouldn't last 3 days before I got myself killed and he didn't want to get attached. He gave me 3 of what he terms less than glamorous contracts. The thing is, I know all 3 of them. The first is Narfi, a beggar and insane man in Iverstead. I once found his dead sister in a river. Apparently he is now on the list for termination as well. A quick question or two confirmed that Raider had indeed been a Brotherhood contract as well. Nazir pointed me to Gabriella if I wanted more details, though. The second is in Dawnstar, one of the 2 mine owners there. Baytild Ironbreaker recently separated from her husband for reasons unknown, but she's been angry and desperate ever since. The husband is the likely source for this contract, but it could just as easily be one of her workers, given how hard she's been working them lately. The only challenge here will be killing her out of sight of the rest of the city. Finally, a truly odious man near Anger's Mill. I ran into him briefly on my first walk out of Windhelm. Inodius Papias is a sad, lonely, paranoid man who believes that someone is going to kill him, and, as Nazir pointed out, he's right. Arnbjorn, the werewolf, serves as the family's blacksmith. He is also Astrid's husband, and has one of the nastiest streaks of nearly uncontrolled anger I think I've ever seen in a person. The only reason he trusts me at all is because of Astrid's stories about me. She trusts me, so he does. I don't want to make a judgment too early on this one, but I think he may be on a path of self-destruction already. My time serving here exposed me to werewolves originally, and of course I was one myself, for a time. I learned something from that experience that I'm not sure that Arnbjorn has. Passion controlled grants power. Passion run wild grants death. If he doesn't learn to control his own emotions, he will only destroy himself. As long as he doesn't take the rest of the family with him, I suppose that doesn't matter. The other vampire in the family, though she is of lesser blood, is Babette. I would call her weak, but no vampire of any bloodline survives for 300 years if they are. She has seen things that historians can only write and theorize about. She was already in her 2nd century when the Oblivion Crisis occurred. Saw the Brotherhood when it was in its golden age around that same time. She may even have seen, though never spoke to, she admits, the hero of Kvatch himself. The Brotherhood has been losing itself a bit in recent times, she admits, but they are still family. And where Astrid leads, she will follow. Fair enough. Mental note, try not to get on Babette's bad side. That pet spider of hers would not be a pleasant thing to wake up to in the morning, and I sense a small bit of trickster in her. Of particular note, say nothing joking about her apparent physical age of 12. I can't imagine all the things she knows that she can't do because of that freeze on her age, and I would rather not irritate her while finding out either. Festus Krex, the resident master of magic, is a former instructor at the College of Winterhold, specializing in, naturally, the Destruction School. He describes himself as a magical prodigy, and perhaps he is, but I will withhold judgment on that claim until I've seen him work. He's also grumpier than I would expect. Then again, the Brotherhood seems to be full of social misfits with sociopathic tendencies, so a little grumpiness is actually a high point. I think it's almost endearing. Almost. He won't have much he can teach me, but if his mind is as sharp as it should be for the power he claims to have, his insights might be useful in the future. Gabriella had much to tell me indeed. She covers many disciplines, including magic, art, and archery. though the last is not her preferred method. It was, however, the one she used to kill a young woman by the name of Rhaeda over a year ago now. 2 iron arrows from the wooded side of the river, and the girl tumbled into the water to be found where I located her a few months ago. We swapped a few stories about archery skills, but otherwise didn't talk about Rhaeda, except as a case study in lining up a difficult shot. In further conversation, she also pointed out a major flaw in the security of the sanctuary. In the old times, the matron of a sanctuary would have the ability to change the question and answer of the Black Door. Astrid is not, technically, the matron here, and thus has no ability to make that change. Gabriella has an idea or two, however, but requires some of her old art tools that were confiscated from her when she was ejected from the college. How fortunate that I have unrestricted access to the full college. Vizara is unique among the Brotherhood in that he has been a member, in a way, since birth. He is the last of his kind, the last of the Argonian shadow scales, trained from birth to be an assassin. Originally, it was to serve the King of Black Marsh, but following a substantial change in the Marsh's view on such things, the shadow scales were essentially disbanded. He had nowhere to go, so returned to the Brotherhood, something he already knew and was familiar with. He is devoted more to Astrid personally than to Sithis and the Night Mother, though this is understandable in his case. To him, it is not a matter of belief, it is simply doing what he was trained to do. Watching him at the training dummies, it is clear he moves swiftly, smoothly, at an almost instinctual level. I look forward to working with him. I think there are some things I can learn from him. Gregor is as close to a retired assassin as I have ever heard of. He is nearly blind, to start, but his infirmities and blindness are all mostly related to an artifact he has used through his life, the Hand of Glory. I've heard of it, but he had all the details that made it clear why it was such a two-edged sword. It grants great power, but if one is not careful and burns away the candle, the hand upon it will turn on the holder and choke the life from its owner. His candle is nearing its end, and so he hid it away on the north shores of Solstheim. In addition to the hand itself, I will also need to acquire the fat of an executed person, one whose crime is as grey and disputed as possible. I already have an idea on that one, though how much fat would be on that body this long time later... But that will be for later. Solstheim will need visiting once again to retrieve the hand before the fat needed is an issue. 24 Midyear, 4th Era, 202. The final portions of the sanctuary contained a small, a chapel to Sithis for all intents and purposes, though I do not see much in the way of signs of recent use, and, surprisingly, a word wall that granted me the word leech from the Marked for Death shout. With all the new members met and my initial tasks assigned, I stopped to speak with Astrid one last time prior to departing, and found, sitting on a side desk in plain sight, the final stone of Baranzaya. With her permission, I took the stone and completed my collection at last, meaning a visit to Vex is needed as well. So, 3 assassinations, 1 stop in Riften to get paid for these stones, and a trip to Solstheim to retrieve an artifact that will do its level best to kill me. No end to the work. Before embarking on this journey, on this new outlook and way of life, I needed to put Aryen's suggestion into action. I returned to Solitude and spoke with Aryen in a public setting, announcing that I would be taking at least the next year off from relic hunting. It had been a very busy year, and I planned to relax for a while before heading out for a while. but if he needed me for any difficult-to-obtain artifacts, that he should ask. Very public, very straightforward. Once the word spreads, then people will not expect to see me traveling the roads of Skyrim for a while, which will help to distance myself from any of my upcoming actions. I went up to the safe house and took all the armor that I was known for wearing and put it on one of the mannequins. They would obviously be of no service to me now. My bow and sword were put up on racks in the workroom, as if ready for me to take them up again when I was ready. Which meant it was time to make new armor before departing. The next hours I spent in planning and execution of a new set of armor. Inspired by the current armor of the Brotherhood, but using all of my knowledge and skill to expand upon its purpose and protections, I spent hours jumping between working leather, steel, dragonbone, and other materials to ensure that this armor would provide me the protections I will need in my new life. As for weapons, I would no longer need them. My newfound mastery of the Conjuration School provided me the weapons I would use in the form of bound weapons, spectral forms that would come at my call, but have all of the force and killing ability of the ones that I would leave here. If you have no weapons on you, they cannot be taken from you, after all. Nor would I ever need to worry about leaving one behind that could later incriminate me. Though I do not believe that the Dread Father will do anything for me or for this armor, I still took the time to dedicate this creation to Sithis. For in his name do I now return that which exists in this world to the void, the nothingness from which all things came and to which all things must eventually return. I will be his instrument on Mundus. My destiny is upon me. And my destiny is the nothing that is the void.